The Africa we see today is vastly different from what it was in the 19th century. There were no large factories, massive buildings, or significant Western involvement like we have now. Back then, many people from the West viewed Africa as a frightening place. It was dubbed the Dark Continent due to its mysterious nature and lack of exploration. Another name it was given is the white man's grave, highlighting the ease with which Europeans could follow and die from diseases unfamiliar to them. Among various names, Sudan is notable for inspiring 3 individuals who dared to think differently from their contemporaries. In 1893, 2 Canadians, Walter Gowans and Roland Bingham, along with an American, Thomas Kent, set out with a mission to spread Christianity to about 60 million people in sub-Saharan Africa, a task many deemed impossible. Unable to garner support from major mission organizations, they embarked on their journey independently, aiming to penetrate deep into Nigeria and beyond. However, their mission faced immediate hardships. Gowans and Kent became severely ill and died in 1894. Forcing Bingham to return to Canada. Faced with the loss of his companions and personal health setbacks, Bingham's resolve was tested when he contracted malaria on his second attempt and again had to return home. What does one do after losing friends to a shared vision and experiencing repeated failures? While some might have abandoned the effort, Bingham persevered. Although he couldn't return to Africa himself, he successfully sent another team that established a base in Padigi, Nigeria, in 1902. This marks the beginning of the work of Sudan Interior Mission, now known as SIMAIR, in Africa, and it has drawn numerous missionaries to the continent, with many choosing to raise their families there as they dedicated themselves to their faith. It was into this unfolding story that Jim Poole was born, at a pivotal moment in history.
I was born in 1956. I lived my first 5 years of life in Egbe. My sister born in 58. In 61, we moved to another station not too far away for 5 years, and then in 1966, we moved to northern Nigeria, where I lived until the age of 16 when I returned to the United States. I landed in the United States in 1972 at a time when the U.S. was rapidly offering all the evils that today are far, far worse than the country at that time. I found myself hunkered down for 5 years in a small school in Northeast Georgia trying to figure out how to live in America.
Jim Poole's parents, both deeply committed to serving God, and having briefly met in the USA, found their paths crossing again in Nigeria as single individuals. His mother, Neva Carr, set foot in Nigeria in 1950, embarking on her missionary journey as a single woman. The following year, in June 1951, his father, Harris Poole, arrived as a single man.
My mother landed there in Nigeria in December of 1950. She served in a station called Egbe, and then met my father, who arrived in the town of Egbe, Nigeria, EGBE, in June of 1951. They were married sometime a couple of years after that.
Harris would go on to play a significant role in the educational landscape of Nigeria, becoming the second principal of Titcombe College in Egbe, Nigeria. His tenure as principal was marked by 2 distinct periods, initially from January 1953 to November 1953, and then again from January 1956 to 1959. During his second tenure, Harris achieved a notable milestone by presenting the first group of students for the prestigious West African Senior School Certificate Examination, WAS, in 1956. Under his leadership, the students excelled, earning credits and honors that positioned Titcombe College as one of the top 2 government-subsidized schools in Nigeria, enhancing the institution's reputation significantly. After marrying, Harris and Neva Poole devoted their lives even more to God's work, particularly in Egbe and at Titcombe College.
Egbe, Nigeria is the story of a man by the name of Tommy Titcombe. Tommy heard the call of God to go to Africa in 1907 and actually landed in 1908 with SIM, traveled up the Great Niger River, stopped at a station called Toccoa, where there was just one missionary man at the time, and then he struck off down through the bush with his team of Nigerians, and ultimately God stopped him in 1908 in what was still today the town of Egbe, and a great work was begun.
To fully understand the depth of God's care for Jim Poole throughout his life, it's crucial to look beyond his present circumstances and delve into his origins in Egbe. Egbe, located in the Yaba West local government area of Kogi State, Nigeria, is renowned both nationally and internationally. It was here that Tommy Titcombe, a pioneering missionary, settled with his wife, Ethel. Together, they opened a maternity clinic in 1925, greatly enhancing healthcare access in the region.
The story of Tommy Titcombe is a book. This book is available on Amazon and can be gotten. It's called Tread Upon the Lion. Tread Upon the Lion, or The Story of Tommy Titcombe, written by a lady by the name of Sophie Delahaye, who served in Nigeria for many years.
The town also hosts the Equa Hospital Egbe, initially established as Egbe Hospital in 1952 by Dr. and Mrs. Campion. Today, it is a state-of-the-art medical facility recognized for its exceptional care, thanks to revitalization efforts in partnership with Samaritan's Purse/World Medical Missions and Banyan Air, a leading aviation firm spearheaded by Don Campion, the hospital founder's son.
As I get dressed to go for a walk here this morning when I'm done with these videos, do I wear a hat of the incredible blessings of God for 32 years with American Airlines, a wore-out hat that I wear when I go walking? Well, I thought I would start with this right here. I want to encourage all of you, because of your love for aviation, to go to banyanair.com.
Furthermore, the Equa College of Nursing Sciences in Egbe is celebrated for producing highly skilled, spiritually committed nurses and midwives. These professionals embody Christ's love in their care, contributing to a healthier society. Egbe boasts other significant achievements, from music education to technology advancements. Clearly, Jim's upbringing in such a service-oriented community deeply shaped him. In addition, a large runway currently under construction in the town aims to further glorify God. Once completed, this runway will significantly aid missionary work globally, reflecting the transformative effect of missionary aviation on Jim's life as a kid.
Okay, so now pulling together the last years of my life in Nigeria and missionary aviation there, the fleet of aircraft that SIM had there at the time were instrumental in flying me back and forth to boarding school numerous times. My sister, other missionary kids, at the time that I was going to the school there in the middle of Nigeria, there was about 250 kids that would need to be flown back and forth 4 times a year to the school. And of course, the missionary pilots were busy every day in all types of flying endeavors. One story that I'll just give to you very, very quickly here is I recommend again a book to you. Schaffer, a pilot who flew me many years as a kid, wrote a book, Just One SIMAIR Story. Just One SIMAIR Story. As a quick side note, you might find, those of you loving airplanes might find this fun. You'll notice that Victor Romeo there, that was actually the Nigerian designation for aircraft prior to Nigeria getting its independence in 1960. After that, they changed it to 5 November, and this particular aircraft, which is Victor Romeo November Delta Bravo, became 5 November Alpha Charlie Bravo, and that's what I knew it as a whole fleet of Piper Comanches, Charlie Alpha, Charlie Bravo, Delta Echo, and then a Charlie Foxtrot, which was an Aztec that flew me back and forth to boarding school. This book is an excellent book. It's available on Amazon, chock full of just Rich's life and his story, day by day, of all of his flying experiences. It can be gotten through Amazon for Kindle, and I believe is free there, and is a great read.
The impact of missionary aviation in Jim's life cannot be overemphasized. Not only was it the means of transportation by which he was able to attend school, but also it brought him across individuals who strengthened him emotionally and spiritually as a kid.
Just one example of a missionary pilot and what a day would look like for him. One of the ladies that served in Nigeria with my mom and dad on the Titcombe College side of a road and the Egbe Hospital side of the other side of the road with a very large mission station at the time was a lady by the name of Mabel Terrell. Mabel was a marvelous, wonderful lady, loved the Lord, served in Nigeria for 34 years. And Rich tells in his book here, the following story. It's August the 29th, and he says 320 miles to Ilorin and back. Took Mabel Terrell back to her station. I always remember the flights with her over the years. Mabel would look out the window for a while, then she would look over the plane, and then she would concentrate on me. Well, Rich, how are you doing? I'd give her the standard answer that satisfied most people. Oh, I'm fine. She would bore a hole right through me with those black eyes or dark eyes. She had beautiful dark eyes with deep concern in her voice. No, I mean, how are you doing, really? That led to some of the most profound spiritual discussions that I have ever had with another person. She really cared about me. That was just the way she was. She really cared about people. That was Mabel Terrell. I love that short story because it speaks to relationship and the reality that in an airplane, one that is trained to safely carry someone or precious cargo from A to B is also gifted this incredible gift of relationship with an individual. And Rich shares here how he was able to pursue the deep things of our God during a time of safely flying an individual. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, we read, "Faithful is he who calls you, who also will do it." And that is really the story of the three that began SIM, the story of Tommy Titcombe, the story of my mother and father. And that's really the first link into aviation, if you will, for me, is the reality of aviation in the following story. 1953 and 54, Mom carried her first child through the full 9 months and then was flown by SIMAIR, the aviation division of SIM, up to a city called Jos in the central portion of Nigeria where the headquarters of SIM was and is, and there in a mission hospital was to deliver her first son, her first child. Right at the time of birth, they lost the heartbeat, couldn't find it, and David was stillborn. And then immediately, his little body was carried away, and he was buried in a cemetery behind the chapel at the boarding school where I ultimately ended up going to school for all the years of my life in Nigeria.
With the loss of their first son, David, in June 1954, Harris and Neva Poole faced this dark period with unwavering faith and perseverance. The pain of losing an infant could have led them to despair or question their mission. But instead, they chose to trust in the Lord's plan and continue their work with hope.
It was told to me this past year that at the time that Mom lost David, her comments to the doctors and nurses, to the team there at the hospital, as she spoke of her faith, was this, simply, "I'll be back." That was her message. "I'll be back. My God will bless me with another child, and I will be back."
Jim Poole was born into this resilient family, grounded in faith and service to the Lord. Yet, growing up in such an environment didn't automatically ensure his personal commitment to walking with God. For a time, Jim distanced himself from the faith of his parents, choosing instead to explore the allure of worldly pleasures. During this phase of his life, despite his detachment, God's watchful eye never left him.
Moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was there that I began my flying experience and learning to fly. I went out to go to school at a school called Spartan School of Aeronautics, and was there for a while, but I did not finish there. I finally finished late in December, I believe it was, of 1980. At that time, I began to work as a flight instructor. Those were tough years, and I want to just stop at this point here and point out that this was a time in my life where I called myself a Christian, but the reality was that there was no personal walk. I did not have my own love for the Lord. I wasn't making the Lord of my life. These were difficult years. In my first marriage, we were there in Tulsa, Oklahoma until 1986, and at that time I moved to Jackson, Mississippi, and picked up a job flying on a corporate jet for 2 years. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, the first Falcon 20 that I flew, I had just been given the job at the age of 28. My captain on the airplane was 28, 4 days older than me. He was way ahead of me in the aviation career. We went to school on the airplane for a few weeks, and then our first trip was from Tulsa to Newark, New Jersey. And I tell the following story only to again gift to you this incredible reality of a God who would keep his protective hand over a guy who he is protecting and being patient on with his mercy and his grace, his protective hand. En route to Newark, New Jersey, my captain had a cerebral hemorrhage. He had a double cerebral hemorrhage. He survived that at that time, but I had to transition over to the left seat of the airplane, or the captain's seat. And I was not a captain on the airplane. I just finished training on the airplane. And the Lord assisted and watched over me and helped me to get this airplane down into Newark, New Jersey. Never seen the place before from the front end of an airplane, much less at nighttime. The weather was great, and I was able to get the airplane on the ground and bring it safely to the corporate location where Billy was taken to the hospital. That experience was a catalyst for me in my career, as the CEO of the company was keen to assisting me with additional training and getting my type rating on the aircraft, allowing me then to sit in the captain's seat by way of this experience. That moved me into my career. That moved me towards ultimately, after several other jobs, flying a couple different airplanes, a Cessna and a Rockwell Commander, that in January of 1989, I found myself, after 2 years with a job in Jackson, Mississippi, being blessed with the opportunity to go to work for American Airlines.
Jim's journey towards a deeper faith was marked by numerous challenges, particularly highlighted by the profound loss of his special child, Zachary, in 2007. Zachary's life was defined by severe neurological conditions from birth, preventing any developmental progress. For 6 years, he bravely faced daily seizures and a host of extreme medical complications. This period was an incredibly difficult time for Jim, filled with both deep sorrow and moments of profound love and learning. Through the pain and the trials of caring for Zachary, Jim's faith was tested and ultimately strengthened as he navigated the complexities of loss and the search for understanding in the midst of such a profound personal tragedy. This pivotal moment led him to trust in God fully, marking the beginning of his own journey with the Lord, distinct from the legacy of his parents.
In short, it was in the middle of his life, in a catastrophic period of time in my life when I was trying to get a home built, the summer of 2005, that I stopped one day in the construction of this home in a dark and desperate place, and approached the Holy One of Israel from a place of absolute brokenness, and for the first time insisting, in a place of insistence, that this simple prayer. I pray, God, if a relationship with you is actually something someone can have, I want it. And that was the beginning of the change of my life, my friends. Many people in their adult years will make a decision for Christ and their lives will be dramatically changed. That was not my story. From 2005, I began to seek the Lord. Quiet time, devotional time. And I began a journey which is still the reality. It is my journey today. And that journey is this relationship that I speak of with Christ is the first and foremost, most valuable, treasured love reality of my life. And therefore, I foster it. And that's what began that summer, was the initiation and the fostering of that relationship. Of course, we know it to be the sanctification process, right? We know it to be ye transformed thereby by the renewing of your mind. And that's the reality for me. And that was the journey that then I really stepped into in the summer of 2005.
It's crucial to acknowledge another instance when Jim's life could have been lost, even before he embarked on his personal spiritual journey. A significant example is the tragic dam incident at Toccoa Falls College in the United States in 1977.
When I arrived at Toccoa in 1972, I didn't know that I would only be there 5 years. Circumstances had me to leave in the summer of 1977. 2 months after I left, Toccoa Falls College experienced a tremendous tragedy in October of that year with incredibly heavy rain that season. A night at 1:30 in the morning, an earthen dam gave way and a 40-acre lake worked its way a couple miles down a creek and over a magnificent set of waterfalls. I don't know if you'll be able to see them in this picture. You can look them up. But the waterfalls are called Toccoa Falls, the name of the town and the name of the school. 3 of the college students who lost their lives were men living in the basement of the dorm. The previous year, I had lived in the basement of the dorm. A friend took my place that fall with my roommate of the prior year, a man who ended up giving his life for Christ on the mission field. His name was Billy. And Billy and John literally survived a 30-foot wall of water that came through the basement and took the lives of 3 students there, and then went down through the valley, taking a total of 38 lives. It can be read about in a book called Dam Break in Georgia. And again, for anyone that would want to know of the story and what God was about through this circumstance. In this case, it's easy to say that divine intervention had it that I was gone 2 months before that tragedy came through there.
Today, Jim reflects on his blessings in his aviation career, attributing his survival not to being better than those who fell victim to the incident, but to the protection he received from God.
Let me welcome you to our home and just a look at a fun bookshelf that will gift a bit of a look at my time at American Airlines. Let me begin here. Everything that you see here is only but by way of the grace of God. Please keep that in mind. Thank you. As we've just together praise Him for this reality. Reality is that In the first years of my life at American, unfortunately, this was not true for me. I was not one that was like a tree planted by the streams of water. But after making a decision to get serious about a relationship, my own personal relationship with the Lord, then these words became so very true to me and have been true to me through all of the trials that life has held. Love this verse. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weak. They will walk and not faint. He's been that sufficiency for me during my time at American Airlines. American Airlines is an airline that was one of the oldest in the world. It began, actually, the first pilot that they had was the famous Lindbergh, who was the first one to fly solo across the United States. He was a freight pilot, had flown for a company called Robinson Airways in a aircraft such as this, a Stearman hauling freight and mail. And that little airline was actually the first airline that developed into American Airlines. American then in the early years flew aircraft such as the Fokker Trimotor and the famous DC-3 that was developed by the CEO of the company. My career began with the 727. I was a flight engineer for 14 months and then moved up to the right seat of this great airplane. I still miss it to this day. From there, after several years in the co-pilot seat, I spent 18 months in the co-pilot seat of the Fokker 100. And after that aircraft, I transitioned up to the 757 and 767, spent a couple of years flying international on the 75 and 76 before returning back down to the Fokker in 1999 to check out as a captain in the left seat of that airplane for the first time. After it, I spent 8 years on an MD-80. I do not have that model, but then after the MD-80, I was blessed to fly the 737 for 5 years, and then spent a few years on the Airbus 320 family, which I very much enjoyed. This aircraft had a heads-up display. I never thought I would ever look through a heads-up display. The Airbus 321 was a fly-by-wire side stick aircraft, most amazing. And then this kid of the soil of Nigeria, only blessed by God, was able to finish up my career with just a couple of flights on the Boeing 777. I flew this aircraft to Tokyo and then only twice to London Heathrow before stepping into an early retirement, tremendously blessed by my Heavenly Father.
In 2023, Jim Poole visited Egbe, Nigeria, as part of a missionary team. During his visit, Titcombe College held a 2-day event to celebrate his father's legacy and Jim's distinguished visit. Addressing over 400 students, Jim shared insights from his life, urging them to pursue a personal relationship with God instead of solely relying on their parents' spirituality. The event served as a meaningful reunion for Jim, reconnecting him with many individuals he knew from his childhood in Egbe and his time at Titcombe College. It featured cultural performances and sports activities, enriching the gathering's communal spirit.
Mr. Alabi, oh yeah? I need someone on my team. Here I come. Here I come. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
However, the highlight of the event was a reflection on the mission's work in Egbe and the recognition of God's faithfulness in sustaining it throughout the years.
Sudan Interior Mission. This speaks of prayer, and it is a product that comes from many, many years ago. And I am grateful that it still is in pretty good shape. And so it is with great joy that I bring back to you. from Psalms 91, a key chapter. And it begins like this: He who abides in the shelter of the Almighty will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. That's the particular version I'm looking at, the Legacy Standard Bible. My question to all of you is simply this: are you one who is abiding? Are you abiding? And I will close this at the end with the following, but I mention it now. Are you one who is purposeful through all of your day and every day in being filled up with the Holy Spirit, prayed up, in continual conversation, praying without ceasing, read up with a love for God's Word, and spending time in it? That is he who abides. A couple of minutes to, again, just give you an opportunity to see the books that I have spoken of, that I encourage you to read, and I'm going to throw in one or two new ones that I just encourage you to read. But these are the books that I have mentioned: 7 Sevens of Years and a Jubilee by Roland Bingham, the story of SIM, the first 50 years of SIM. This book has changed my life, by Merlin Carruthers, called Prison to Praise, from Merlin Carruthers. Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7, crucial for the days, weeks, and months ahead. And that is the story by Dumitru, Duduman, a man persecuted tremendously for Christ in Romania for many years before he was kicked out of the country and landed here in the United States, bringing many prophetic dreams and visions to the United States, to the church in the United States. In his book, Through the Fire Without Burning, Through the Fire Without Burning, I strongly encourage a read and an understanding of what Dumitru Duduman, who is today with the Lord, brought this country, but really all of us in the church.
Currently, Jim and his beautiful wife Carol are dedicated to serving the Lord in various capacities, aiming to equip his people. They eagerly anticipates the fulfillment of the Lord's return and the realization of all that is promised in the Bible. Without mincing words, this is an inspiring story brimming with faith and grace. It recounts the life of a man preserved by God. Furthermore, it communicates the profound truth that God's love reaches out to everyone, regardless of how they perceive or accept Him, and He is relentless in showing His mercy to all. As Jim's story unveils, even when we are not seeking God, He is always seeking us.